Hey everyone, Josh McKirk here with you once again, and now it's time for episode 215 of Album of the Day, which, sorry I didn't get to, do this last week. Lately I've been, suffering from a cold, and I am feeling a little bit better, but, still sound a bit croaky, so, I'm sorry if my voice sounds a little more, croaky than usual, but anyway, let's get on with the review. So today's artist is a singer, songwriter, and multi-instrumentalist whom, if you watch my channel, you know that I absolutely adore this guy's body of work. Of course, his real name is Josh Tillman, but he currently goes by the name Father John Misty. Some of you may know him because he used to be the drummer for the Seattle-based folk rock band Fleet Foxes, but then he left the band in 2012 to pursue this career under his current moniker, Father John Misty. I'm here to review his latest album, which came out this year on June 1st, 2018, and the album is called God's Favorite Customer. And as you can see, I own the album on vinyl here. I'm a pretty big fan of this man's body of work. I Love You, Honey Bear, and even more so, Pure Comedy, his previous record. Matter of fact, I'd have to say that Pure Comedy is actually my favorite record of 2017 overall. Anyway, I'll go into more detail about this record later. Anyway, here's the cover, which this is like the first Father John Misty album to actually have a real photo of Josh Tillman on there, which he seems very kind of depressed and just kind of literally, got so much on his mind. And then here's the back. There's 10 songs on this record. It's over 38 minutes, so it's definitely shorter than the 75-minute epic that was Pure Comedy. And I love how this sleeve, it has the credits on it, but it looks very kind of DIY, so it's very funny. It says stuff like, apologies for any misspellings, misrepresentations, etc., in parentheses, omissions. Yeah. So definitely some very neat liner notes there. Probably written by Josh Tillman. And there's the vinyl, which I like how the vinyl, the label on it makes it appear as though it's a test pressing, but in reality it's the actual record. So I really like how imperfect the packaging of this looks. And it did have a download card, but I used it because there is plenty of beauty in a download card, so don't throw those things away if you got one. And that's the vinyl packaging for God's Favorite Customer, the new album by Father John Misty. Now, this record did come out in June, but, I'm kind of reviewing it a little late for a good reason. I did listen to the full record in July, because, I made a goal to listen to this, because I'm such a huge fan of Josh Tillman's music, and, I liked it on first listen, but I didn't really love it that much. I really liked the lyrical ideas, but musically I thought he was kind of playing it safe and kind of taking a step down from his last record, but a few months pass by, and I hear people that are raving about this record, and matter of fact, I think this is probably the least divisive album that Tillman has ever put out under this name to date. So I thought, well, maybe this could grow on me if I, go back to it, and I listened to the album again, and sure enough, it definitely grew on me, to the point where I definitely am very happy that I didn't just give up on it totally, because this is yet another very intriguing chapter in Father John Misty's discography. I mean, it's more stripped back, a little more accessible than anything he's done before. But that just allows his songwriting to shine that much more. So, for any of you who found some of his work maybe a bit too complex for your taste, this album will likely, appeal to you. It's this really cool concept about this idea about this guy who, gets dumped by his, lover and basically ends up, in this very, depressing, very, kind of, mind-bending, 2-month stay in a hotel. Matter of fact, the cover kind of looks like as though he's outside looking at the window of the hotel with a red light shining on his face while he's just losing his mind. But it results in this pretty amazing record. The opening track, Hangout at the Gallows, is very strong. Probably my favorite song on the album. First of all, Josh Tillman's vocal performance on the song is incredible, and it makes his lyrics of whose bright idea was it to sharpen the knives just 20 minutes before the boat capsized just sounds so effective. And when he gets into that part of what's your politics, what's your religion, pretty simple sentiment, but he just makes it sound so powerful. So I think because he kind of scaled things back a little bit, his vocal performance just, becomes that much more effective. Though the instrumental on the track does sound really cool. I love its kind of dramatic strings and horns, the melancholy piano, which is paired with some neatly timed bass and drums. And then the end of the song is just incredibly chaotic. That's kind of got walls of synth noise going on, and it just sounds so incredible the way the song just falls apart. Matter of fact, I'd have to say it's probably, as of right now, in my top 10 Father John Misty songs. One of the best lead singles on the record is the song Mr. Tillman, which is just super catchy, and it actually has kind of super catchy, and it has a very beautifully written melody that actually very much reminds me of something out of a Broadway musical or something like that, because the vocals have that sort of feel to them, and then it's as they're paired with some very playful piano, cool drumming and cute little twinkling glockenspiel in there. I really love how the song lyrically seems to be told from the perspective of a guy who's working at the front desk of the hotel, it seems, reminding him of their policy because he left his passport in the mini fridge and he's always leaving his mattress in the rain, sleeping on the balcony. And I also love his reference to the 7-year sober Jason Isbell sort of expressing his concerns about him and, kind of the disaster he's kind of got himself into right now. So I think it's so funny how, and clever how, kind of sarcastic the song is, especially in the chorus. I mean, he did say, I'm feeling good, man, I'm feeling so fine, but he's just burying his demons right there. I mean, definitely a great choice for the first single, because it is definitely one of his catchiest, most addictive songs to date. And also, I do love in the second verse the lyrics about him finding people that he thinks are extras in a movie, but in reality they're the clientele, and and they're not running lines. The song another highlight for me on this album is the song "Just Dumb Enough to Try." I mean, the first three songs on this album are like very strong, I would say. The song "Just Dumb Enough to Try" definitely is a perfect example of how, if "I Love You, Honey Bear" was by far the most romantic and kind of positive record that Father John Misty's put out, this is by far the most negative album he's ever put. Most harrowing album he's ever put out. Right off the bat, from the first few lines, I am pulled right in when he says stuff like, "I know a few 10-cent words. There ain't nothing I can take back from her. You can take what I know about love and drown it in the sink." And also, there's some other pretty sad lyrics in here, like the line of, "You can take what I know about you and maybe fill a small balloon, but I'm just dumb enough to try." And also, really good instrumental in the track. It definitely, at first, kind of sounds like a straight-ahead piano ballad, but then you get some other interesting elements, like kind of weeping steel and cellos, along with a really cool fuzzy bass solo in the middle, too. As well as some Neil Young-inspired finger-picked guitars on there, too. Definitely a beautiful ballad, and certainly one of this album's best tracks. But I have a feeling that this album's loneliest, most emotionally dejected compositions on here are the songs where it's basically just him with a piano and very little else. Like the song "The Palace," where he's sort of in this moment of he doesn't like it in the hotel because he's just, it seems more like a place to just kind of drown in his sorrows, and he's obviously, and he's got nothing to do except take drugs and do some pretty unproductive kind of foolish stuff. But yet he doesn't want to leave the palace. Pretty much, it's that kind of sad little secret that he's got going on. So it makes the second verse where he talks about thinking about maybe taking care of a pet instead of a girl. So it makes sense that he ends that verse with, "I'm afraid it could defeat the purpose." And I have to admit, that part where he says, where he sings, "I'm in over my head," and the piano just tenses up, it's so beautiful. And then the other track that has those similar traits is the song, the Songwriter, which is definitely a very clever sort of song about sort of asking his ex-love who could be he could be in a phase where he's dealing with his actual wife sort of dumping him and stuff like that, which makes sense. I mean, considering Father John Misty's been pretty controversial lately. I mean, he said some pretty, nasty things kind of in the media and stuff like that. Which has kind of, lost some people, including his wife, but it is just so brave of him to sort of make an album that's kind of, about him sort of dealing with that sort of crisis, even if it does mean his, ex-wife somewhere is going to be, just cringing while listening to this. Let's do this. So I really like how he's got that idea of, I really like on this song how he sort of asks her what would it be like if she were the songwriter, and songwriter, sort of asking her, would you detail your near constant consternation, or would you, like, undress me repeatedly in public, which kind of makes a reference to the kind of sexual and kind of romantic lyrical themes of Honey Bear. So while he is feeling pretty down, I like how on the song there's still a little bit of hope to be found. Like, he feels, he kind of feels okay with kind of, moving on in his life and, trying to, focus on something else. So there's definitely some, so there's definitely some real conviction when he says, goodbye, little songbird, I can leave. Leave. Now, this record definitely is a pretty, dark and kind of unsettling record, but, it doesn't mean that it, lacks catchy melody. Matter of fact, this album has some of his most addictive songs to date, including the song Date Night, which is this fun little, like, pop rock song, which probably is the most kind of optimistic on the entire record. I really like the bouncy bass line, the playful pianos, along with some whizzing synth effects over those neat little drum parts. I really like how, even though the song is called Date Night, it's not really like the conventional date night song. He seems to sort of, he may be sort of talking to his ex-love, sort of wondering, like, if he, if she, still knows, like, most of his friends who are real exclusive dudes who listen to demos and wear drees. Wear drees. And also love some of the other lines on here, like, I also want to vanquish evil, but my mojo is gone. And also the part where he says, are you hearing impaired with your own URL? Definitely some of the, most hilarious kind of lyrics on this whole record appear on this song. And also that catchy little hoo 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 is just so hooky, and I can't help but just want to bob my head to it. And then the other song on here that I think is incredibly catchy, I'm kind of referring to the shortest songs on the record. The song Disappointing Diamonds Are the Rarest of Them All. Beautiful song title, by the way. It's a beautiful song title, by the way, which very much kind of summarizes this whole album's sort of aesthetic. Aesthetic, and it's got some really cool instrumental elements in there. I really like the kind of twangy, old classic rock inspired guitars. They go so well over the backing instrumentation. Some sweet little saxophone licks at the end too. And this song is like just so like well written melodically that I can't help but just kind of hang on to every word that Jay Tillman says on here. So when he says stuff like a pervert on a crowded bus, a glare of love bears down on us, like a caucus left out in the heat, this love is bursting out of me. And also, he puts on an incredible vocal performance on the chorus. I mean, when he gets into his upper range, it is just, like, it's heavenly. I'll tell you that. Heavenly. And, like, one other song that I definitely should highlight, that I think is my second favorite on this whole album, is the title track, which... So, is the title track, which musically sounds very much inspired by some really good Southern soul with some really strong organ playing on it. Organ playing and a really cool bass and drum part two. The song lyrically definitely is definitely a very key sort of moment in this entire album, to where he has sort of where he's sort of begging, this person that he's recently come across to like, speak to him because he hasn't had anyone to talk to in like weeks in this 2 month stay, and he. Too, I mean, he's sort of begging them, like, speak to me, sweet angel. Don't you remember me? I was God's favorite customer. Favorite customer, and also definitely some great lyrics in the verses as well, where he's sort of kind of finding a moment where he's sort of talking to his love and saying, I need some company. Can you just stay for one more night longer? And it's just so gorgeous when Natalie Maring from Wise Blood comes in on those choruses, just with those very angelic backup vocals. I mean, when their voices kind of bleed into one another. I can't really explain it. It's so good. So good. Overall, this is a very strong record from front to back. Though there are a few moments here that I do think kind of pale in comparison a little bit. Like the song Please Don't Die. I mean, certainly a great song. I mean, great lyrics on it, for sure. Lyrics on it, for sure. And I do really like the kind of twangy, alternative country type instrumentation, which definitely sounds something like he could have done off of Fear Fun, which his debut album, which is kind of the reason why this song is a little bit of a lull for me, because it just sounds like he's kind of, copying his own album a little bit, like, kind of copying what he did on Fear Fun, his debut. But I think the real snag here is the closing track, We're Only People, and there's not much we can do about that. I mean, he literally opens the song lyrically by saying, people, we're only people, and there's not much that anyone can do about that. I mean, there are a million other songwriters singing those same exact lines. Exact lines, I will say that. I mean, it's not really a terrible song necessarily, but, it's kind of, cliched lyrics in the verses are kind of enough to sort of give me that sort of feeling of, man, he's better than this. However, this song does have its strengths about it. I mean, I do really like the chorus where he says, friends, all my friends, I hope you're somewhere smiling. He's sort of kind of hoping for the best of those people, like, even if he's just feeling lonelier than he's ever been. And still sort of saying, I'll see you next time around the bend. The bend. And I will say this song does have, though I will say this song does have its musical shortcomings as well. I mean, I thought that opening guitar melody was kind of underwhelming. Though it does have a really cool ending thing, a really nice kind of ending verse that kind of is a nice little conclusion for this album. I mean, it could only make sense for him to end this album by saying, why not me? Why not you? Why not now? So yeah, definitely, I definitely am really digging this album. I mean, this is kind of, last minute kind of favorite for me, but, still, I don't care, because I certainly love this album. I think Josh Tillman has definitely come out with his most accessible record to date, and proves that he's still very capable of creating albums with a really good concept and, really bringing in a bunch of, like, reality to what he's writing. So it makes sense to me why this album is hailed by some people as maybe his best album. So I'm definitely going with a strong 8 out of 10 for this new Father John Misty album. I mean, it is refreshing to see him kind of scale things back a little bit as well, because as much as I love the ambition and the complex song structures of pure comedy, you can't really be that self-indulgent all the time. Sometimes you kind of have to sort of, tone things down a little bit to sort of progress as a songwriter. So that's my review of God's Favorite Customer, the new album by Father John Misty, and I'll see you for episode 216.